Hello and welcome back to the New York Young Republican Club podcast. My name is Mario J. Nicoletto, your campaign's chairman of the New York Young Republican Club. And I'm very happy to have two candidates here as campaign's chair. I want to jump straight into it, get a really quick introduction. We have with us Pamela Michos. Pam's running for state senate in the 11th district of the state senate of New York State, I should say. Pam, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. We love to see it. We have a return guest in Mr. Brandon Castro running for the Assembly, the 30th District in Queens. Our Queens slate, if you will. We got one person missing, but this will do for now. Brandon, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm just very happy to be back here. Very happy.
Awesome. I know we were up against that wall before, and now we're moving everything around. But listen, I want to get a really quick introduction. We have some stuff to show, but I guess, Brandon, what have you been doing? How's it been going so far since we spoke last?
Time's been flying by so fast, man. I think the last time we were here, what was it? April, May, somewhere around there. Time flies by so fast. I've just been making the absolute most out of my time. Most of my time when I'm not going to work is calling people, asking them to contribute, asking them to support, asking them to donate, attending as many events as humanly possible. Just last week, the week prior to this, we were on a horse at the Ecuadorian Day Parade. Everywhere I go, I want to make sure that people know who I am, what my brand is. I'm the independent voice running for Western Queens this year. It's been going absolutely fantastic.
I love you had to mention that you were on a horse.
Oh, I have to. Yeah.
I saw that picture and I thought it was AI for a second, but
some people did the same thing. Yeah, they thought that it was AI. I'm like, no.
Did you need a permit for that?
Yeah, it took like a couple of weeks trying to organize and do all that stuff. We had to work with the precinct there, along with like the local organizers. And finally, just in the nick of time, we were able to get it.
Getting the horse.
That's right. It was a lot of fun.
Pam, what have you been up to? I mean, I know you've never been on, but I guess
I've never been
for
on.
the folks that have not seen you yet, where are you running and what are you running for?
I'm running for state senate in District 11. And no, I've never been on, but I watch the show with my little Georgie, my 9-year-old son, every week. He's a big fan of Mario and Stefano and the whole crew. So District 11 in Queens runs from Astoria through Douglaston. It goes down south to Belrose, Flora Park, Jamaica. It's a really huge district. I'm running against Toby Ann Stavisky, the dinosaur that's been there for 30 years. She's 90 years old. So we're going to still have to work hard. It's not going to be an easy peasy thing to just to get her out of office, but we're going to do it.
Absolutely. And both of you are running against establishmentarian characters. I want to get to that more, especially as to how we're going to beat your opponent, how we're going to beat Toby Ann Stavisky. But first, a couple announcements, and then I want to get to some programming. On August 13th, we have Meet the Candidates Night. That's where you get to meet these two lovely, lovely people in person at our clubhouse. That's Meet the Candidates Night on August 13th. Thank you, Ian. On the 20th of August is Spritz and Spirits. You're not going to want to miss it. Also with the New York Young Republican Club. And on August 27th, the NYYRC Women's Caucus is having a paint and sip tote bag edition. I won't be there, but
exciting.
Yeah, well, maybe Pam will be there. September 2nd, the NYYRC Speaker Series. A little more about this from our president, Stefano Forte, a little later. Robert Amsterdam and Father Samuel Davis will be having a speaker series in Midtown with us. I believe it's in Midtown. And finally, I annoy you, big guy. Look at me. You know I know you every week about this. Our annual gala. On December 12th, we're going to have our annual 114th gala. It's going to be an event for the history books. I've been to 3 or maybe 4 galas in the past. You're not going to want to miss this. Every time it is explosive. It's amazing. So with that said, I want to get to our Sunday Scaries and a presidential address from President Stefano L. Forte.
Hello, everybody. This is Stefano Forte, president of the New York Young Republican Club. St. Rita's Church in Queens has been vandalized again. This is the 4th attack in under 2 years that St. Rita's Church has faced. A St. Francis of Assisi stained glass window that was over 60 years old was smashed in, and the most recent attack was a man hopping over the fence and pushing over with a hammer a statue of the Blessed Mother. Yet again, we see anti-Christian sentiment seep into our city. Christianity as a whole is the most persecuted religion on the planet. You can see churches from the Holy Land to New York to Australia to Europe being vandalized and attacked, Christians being brutalized and persecuted, while the world does nothing. Christians, whether they be Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, must come together to say that we will not tolerate our churches being vandalized, faithful being brutalized, or our church being persecuted by any government. The New York Young Republican Club is standing up to this anti-Christian hatred. The New York Young Republican Club is hosting a speaker series with Robert Amsterdam, the lawyer for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, on September 2nd to discuss the crisis of Christianity and its persecution throughout the world.
In 1929, the U.S. stock market crashed, causing the price of burritos to skyrocket to 20 cents each. The Great Depression had officially begun, and for the next decade, American families would be forced to make do, preparing burritos at home rather than buying them from Chipotle or Qdoba. Though President Roosevelt did his best to subsidize the cost of rice and cheese, it wasn't enough. Lines stretched for blocks as hungry Americans waited hours for a plain burrito, often without salsa, sour cream, or even guacamole. For many, these were the darkest days in American history.
Amazing work as always, James. I want my burritos and I want them affordable, okay? I want affordable burritos. And also an amazing announcement from our president, Stefano Forte. Please come to that event. It's going to be a fantastic time. Back to our candidates. Earlier we were talking about, I mentioned something to the effect of going up against the establishment, going up against the establishment class. And Brandon, I want you to speak to that a bit more. I know you've been on before. I know that a lot of our members know you, but we haven't really caught up with the state of the race so far. We've had a primary on the Democratic side. You've been fundraising. You've been throwing events. You've been an animal. In about an hour from now, you have another event you got to go back to your district for. Listen, this guy is the hardest worker in Republican politics, at least in Western Queens. I think in Northeastern Queens, we have our hardest worker there too. But listen, Brandon, how's it been going so far? Give us the state of the race right now.
Well, the last time I spoke, it was an open seat still. It still is an open seat now. But the Democrat primary, there was 3 of them running. And it was narrowly decided during election day when we saw the DSA wave, the socialists taking over their own party, split by 13 votes. And then it went down to 2 votes. And then after like a recount is around 2 weeks, 7 votes, and Patrick Martinez won. I call him Patrick Crowley Martinez. He's the definition of what the establishment is. It wasn't just a DSA wave that happened to take over. It was a lot of people fed up with the New York City politics, fed up with the establishment, fed up with the people, a bunch of the do-nothing Democrats. You don't get change with establishment Democrats. You don't. Regardless of the party that you are in, you don't get change there because they're beholden to the people donating. They are beholden to the local, or even like the national parties. They're not beholden to the people. And that's what I am. You know, I don't have a script to follow. I'm the independent voice running for Western Queens. But Patrick, he won by 7 votes. This was the only seat in Western Queens, one of the very few in the entire city that did not go outright DSA. And with that narrow of a margin there, his base of support is starting to crumble. There was a lot of warning signs there. And that's something that's my job to outreach, knock on doors, or tell people what my story is, where I come from. I was born and raised here. I'm a second-generation Ecuadorian American. I went to school here. I graduated from a CUNY college. You know, I live and breathe here. Patrick on the other hand, I can say I'm the first in my family to run. I'm the first in my family to have any government role of any kind. While a Patrick Crowley, he's the 7th person that we could find. There's probably way more to run, to have any type of government office. He comes from the Crowley family. So he is the nephew of former Congress member Joe Crowley. He is the cousin of former council member Elizabeth Crowley. Elizabeth Crowley, who lost to the Democrat who has endorsed me since the very first day, Robert Holden. And ever since then, they have like a family tree that goes back to the 1970s, back to like the 1980s. And they have been in control of the Democrat Party here for a long time. And what change have we actually seen done? We've seen the infrastructure get worse. We saw with all like the flooding going on. We've seen the public safety get worse. We've seen the quality of life also get worse here. We see the education rates actively going down. So when people want to talk about change, you have to elect your Queens candidates like us. You have to elect the local candidates. That's what I am. I'm Queens, born and raised here. I live inside of Maspeth now, but I'm the Queens candidate. And when people go to vote this year, I'm on 4 different party lines. I'm as much as the Republican and the conservative candidate. I'm the arts and culture candidate, and I'm the reform candidate. We have to reform the system away from the establishment Democrats that have been taking such a stranglehold over our politics for a long time. And that's my pitch to a lot of like the people here. I was born and raised here. I want more quality schools, smart and safe infrastructure, a better quality of life for everybody, regardless of what party you are in.
Right. Donald Trump, not to make a national equivalency, this is just something I've noticed. Donald Trump won in 2016. He won in 2020. I don't care what people say. And then he won in 2024. And a lot of that was done through progressives who wanted to vote for Bernie or wanted to vote for Pocahontas or somebody like that, somebody on the, I guess, fringes of the left wing. They either sat the election out or they voted for Trump. I kind of see an equivalency there with you because you have a young, spry, energetic voice whose common sense, we're not going to go super far right, super far left. You're pretty much a moderate. You're in the middle, I'd argue. And you have basically the swamp candidate, essentially, the establishment candidate that's the same old. And the same is applicable for Toby.
Yeah, I was going to say that we both
Definitely.
Do you think that you have some crossover appeal to progressives?
Well, there's a lot of things that we agree on there. We don't like the way that New York City is being run around. We don't like the way that New York State, it's been the Democrat Party. They have been the swamp here for such a long time already. So we agree on that. I'm an anti-casino candidate. I don't like the casino that's being built over by a Flushing over there. A lot of the progressives happen to agree with that stance. The position that I take on that is how much is going to affect the quality of life there, the environment for sure. We're going to see a lot of crime, a lot of more, a drainage to the quality of life and the infrastructure that we have. That's going to spread to some of the outer communities there. And that's always been the number one concern for me, but also that we have a bunch of billionaires backing that. We should have more of a voice for the people that live there. We should have more of a community voice, an independent voice, not one that's being funded and supported by the billionaire class.
And the funny thing is that the progressives support that. The DSA supports them, and they're anti-billionaire. It just doesn't make any sense. They're hypocrites.
Yet they're funded by billionaires.
So
it's absolutely true. And one thing I noticed about you, I was petitioning with you. When was this? May? This was independent petition.
March
so I think
or
it was
April, around there.
April, May, March, whenever that was, in Diversity Plaza, right? I don't know if any of you know where Diversity Plaza is. I brought it up on the show like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And, I won't get into my opinions on it, but not a lot of people speak English, almost no Republicans, but we still petitioned there and people signed for us because you're an authentic, real human being. And that's also transferable to you, Pam, where, we have a working mother, somebody who is not bought and paid for by PACs or politicians or corporations. And I guess I'd ask you, Brandon, and you, Pam, and whoever wants to go first, in terms of authenticity, you two are authentic candidates. Our opponents are most certainly not. How can we get that to, I guess, resonate with the independent voter in our districts?
You want me to go first? How can we get us to resonate with the independent voter? I think we just have to go out there and talk to people. And that's what I've been doing, especially in the southern part of my district, which we lose every single time because they just vote down. They're Democrats, or they just vote down the line, or they could be Republicans and they don't come out. And the things that I'm hearing from them is that they're tired. They're tired. They know I'm a Republican, and they're like, "Well, what are you? I hope you're not a socialist." I said, absolutely not. I'm actually a Republican and conservative. However, I have some moderate views, and I'm here to help people. And it's not so much the what, because we hear progressives and DSA and Democrats say the same thing. We want to do this. We want to help people, but the how is the more important thing here. How we're going to get there. Their how is to destroy our country. That's their how. Okay. My how is to fiscally be more responsible. And I work in finance and in banking, and I've run multiple businesses for a very long time, for over 20 years. And I have a lot of experience with saving companies money. And that's what I'm going to do with the district. And then you could still help people by divesting in illegal immigration and helping American families and helping especially American mothers, because that's really close to my heart. And I'd like to give American women the help that I never got.
That's a very, very good pitch. If I were an independent voter, unfortunately, I'm not. I don't live in your district, but I'd vote for you after hearing that. Most certainly. Brandon, what do you think?
I position myself as the independent voice. I'm on 4 different party lines, so I can actually claim that. And it's kind of how I position and how I actually believe in now. There's a lot of things that were promised to us by the national government, especially by the local governments here, that have not been done. And both of the parties are responsible for doing that. All that they want is our vote. And then when they don't happen to deliver, they want our very same vote. You have to earn our vote. There's a lot of like the local issues going on here. And for the independents out there, we're seeing like the Democrats going so far left. But there's a reason why there was a lot of people that voted for the socialist candidates. They were tired of the establishment. They want to change somebody who means what they say. A lot of these Democrats running, they'll say like the same old script. They want the votes, and they know that they're in pretty safe areas where as long as they make it past the primary, more often there is no challenger, or they're just going to win anyway. So for them, they can kind of sit on like their high horse, kind of like how I did last week, but I was there marching with the local community and speaking to them rather than being on a throne, unopposed, not funded by billionaires. We already have the matching funds. Just calling people every single day, tiring myself out to make sure that we're able to maximize on that. But I'm out there speaking to people every day as much as I possibly could. By a lot. Yeah, that's right. But, when I'm speaking to them, it helps that I was born and raised here. I'm the same age. I'm only 26. I'm about to be 27 in just 2 weeks from now. The same age as a lot of the people my age that are struggling. We're struggling to afford like the cost of living here. Not only are they unemployed, they're underemployed too. You graduate from college, you're promised something. You put in the very, very hard work for it. You graduate 4, 5, 6 years. What are you actively getting from that? You cannot apply for a lot of jobs. You can try, but it takes weeks, months, and just like the requirements that they want, it's like an endless list. And so what I really want is to provide quality education. One of my campaign slogans ever since day one, grow skills and jobs. We want to support merit-based programs, actual quality schools, vocational training, career development training programs. Back during my time in college, this is my second time running, by the way. I ran back in 2024, a year after I graduated from Queens College. And, I got around 40% against the incumbent. It's an open seat this year against a very unpopular Patrick Crowley. But what I did during my college years was trying to teach people how to speak, how to dress, how to apply for jobs, get not only the confidence, but the internships, the experience so that they can compete in the workforce. And that's the type of thinking that we need. If we want a generation and we want to blame them for everything. Why are you voting this way? Why are you voting for the socialist candidates? Well, when you've had decades of the establishment running over here, and all that we see is quality of life go down, infrastructure go down, the education going down, tuition going up, the cost of living going up. Well, we need to find that balance.
That was actually going to be my next question. It was going to be about socialism, about the DSA and Mamdani. Before I do that, though, your birthday is next week. You had an announcement about your birthday. What's happening for your birthday?
So in 2 days from now, on Tuesday, August 11th, I'm going to be having a birthday fundraiser right in the heart of Maspeth over there. And so anyone that is willing to come out, we want to max out on our matching funds, get as much of the community support as humanly possible. That's ultimately what I am. I am the community voice. I'm the independent voice. And we are the Queen's first candidates.
I love it. I love it. And Pam, I'll start with you on this next one. Do you think Zohran Mamdani being the mayor is going to help you or hurt you?
Good question.
Is that a trick question? Is it going to help me or hurt me? I think it's going to help me.
It is pretty much a trick question. I'm saying.
I mean, he's the reason why I'm running.
How will that change the dynamic?
How will what change the dynamic?
Zohran being the mayor.
I think in our district, it'll definitely help me because District 11 is not a socialist district at all. It's moderate and then somewhat to the right, moderate Democrat, 55% Democrat. I think 17% Republican. The rest is independent.
It's very independent.
It's very, very independent. And I don't think I've spoken to any person in my district, north, south, east, or west, that likes or supports socialism. So they're just not happy. I think I've spoken to maybe one woman who was like, "Oh, what's wrong with affordable housing?" It has nothing to do with affordable. They're just misinformed and uneducated when it comes to what his real purpose is.
I have a feeling that, because I was looking at the map before, and Donald Trump, who is a polarizing figure nowadays, and even back in 2024 when he had so much momentum, he was still a polarizing figure. He got 45-ish% of your district, and same for you, Brandon. I feel like, and I'll get to you right after this. I feel like having Zohran as the mayor, which, by the way, Cuomo won your district, and I believe Zohran won your district by a hair, Brandon. I believe him being there puts both of you in a prime time opportunity to flip these seats, especially considering that your opponent, Brandon, is a part of I'll call it the Queen's Swamp, and your opponent is
mine is the Queen's.
She lives a swamp.
She is the swamp. She is the swamp.
She probably invented
part
the
of it.
swamp
She invented
in
the swamp.
1802.
So going back to Toby and Stavisky, they've had this seat since 1967. Well, at first it was the assembly seat her husband Leonard had from 1967, 1983. He was elected as the state's editor. He passed away in 1999. They had a special election. They got her in, and she's been there ever since. I think she's run unopposed many of the years. I think she's had some candidate. I mean, Stefano ran against her, Yatin. So hasn't been since the last 8 to 10 years that she's had any kind of opposition. And it's getting closer and closer, and we're going to do it this time. I think Yatin got 47%.
It was in that ballpark for sure. And with Zohran being the mayor, that's 3 points. 50 plus 1. That's all you're going to need.
That's it.
And hopefully, our Hernandez and Blakeman and Saritha, I think they'll be helpful towards us. But I think Zohran being the mayor right now is going to have disastrous consequences for not only the DSA but the establishment Democrats in New York City as well. And that leads me to you. What do you think about Zohran being the mayor? Is that going to help you or hurt you?
Well, he's activated a base that wants to be heard, much like how, the Republicans have theirs, and they had theirs back in 2016 and during the Tea Party movement. They have their speaker now. They have their advocate there sitting right at the top of the throne. And it's our job to create that balance of dialogue. So he's activated that base that they didn't really turn out to vote. I have an assembly district that Curtis Sliwa won by, I think, 67 points against Eric Adams. With the progressives voting, it would have easily went to Eric Adams over there. And what we saw is the establishment Democrats, the party hacks that haven't listened to what their constituents have wanted. This has been brewing for a long time. AOC beat the uncle of my opponent, former Congressmember Joe Crowley. And he was one of those that just expected everything to be handed over to him. He was about to be the Speaker of the House. I think he was kind of slated to be so. And they ran the Queen's Democratic machine, and they're trying to come back through this very same seat. So that anger is there on both sides. The anger is there that people don't want those types of people just handed over. It's kind of like a family lineage, all the way from the 1980s, very, very similar to yours. Yeah, so they have been controlling the Queen's Democrat machine for such a long time. And what has that gotten us? No change, nothing absolutely meaningful. And it's jobs like me, a Gen Z, the only Gen Z candidate running the entire city this year. I was endorsed day one by former council member, Democrat Robert Holden. I was endorsed as well by the New York Forward Party. That's Andrew Yang's, his independent party line. And that's our way. I am the coalition candidate. We are building like a coalition and taking advantage, not taking advantage, but speaking to people, all the anger that's there on both of the sides, not only toward the national government, but especially toward the local governments here, that we need fresh voices in there. It wasn't just a DSA wave. We saw fresh, newer voices there. And I'm going to be a part of that wave. This is going to be the third time that a Crowley gets beat. Well, actually, Elizabeth had lost like a few times as a former council member. She was trying to run again, I think twice. She lost both times pretty. I think the first time she had gone close, but they are a part of the past. He's going to be a part of the past. He cannot, if I did not exist, would have been a clean sweep for him. He would not survive past the primaries of 2028. You already know that the DSA, they're looking for somebody to run over here, but he will not get past the election date, November 3rd, 2026, because we're going to win with the coalition that we are actively building, an independent, common sense coalition that wants to see meaningful change and people who live and breathe the community there.
Absolutely. You're going to make him prehistoric history, and I'm pretty sure Toby Stavitsky is already from the prehistoric era. So
I'm
it
sure
makes
that
it
they get
easy
along
for
pretty
us.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Well,
real.
she had some DSA people in her primary as well. I mean, she knocked everybody off the ballot. They didn't stand a chance with her taking them to court, but there was 4 people in her primary. We had Azam,
Yes.
Adam Engel, and then some DSA
Somebody
guy.
from Astoria, I think,
Yeah,
right?
some DSA kid that they're coming. So that's the point. The point is they're coming. They're coming after the seat. They're eyeing it. They're probably like, you know, she's probably going to win, so let's not put too much energy into it. But they're coming for all the seats.
With
And
the both of us, they will not see past the primary date of 2028. If we were not there to run, they're already going to claim the seat. They're going to claim yours. They're also going to try and claim mine.
Yep.
No.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking of which, I'm happy that we mentioned that because it brings me into my next kind of topic, so to speak. A lot of these younger people, you know, I'm 25, so I'm just a year younger than you, Brandon. But I'm still, you know,
still young too.
I'm sorry.
I'm still young too.
No, you are
Very
still
much so.
young.
Very much so. We're all young up here.
We're all young
We're
Republicans.
fresh blood. You know,
Exactly.
we have to be in there.
Exactly. You know, we have the Common Sense Coalition. I was talking about that with Tom Stanton last week and Troy Olson last week. The Common Sense Coalition, the Cuomo Democrats, the slew of Republicans, pretty much every Republican, and a lot of independents, Jewish voters, Asian voters, etc., who are being essentially, you know, forgotten by the Mamdani regime and his dastardly vision for New York City. We have that group of people, and we have the DSA. The people that vote with the DSA candidates and with the DSA policies, they typically do it on 3 different lines. And one of them that I find to be the most important, at least for the transplants from Ohio and Kansas, would be affordability. So how can we, and I'll begin with you, Brandon, then we'll move over to Pam. How can we fight the affordability issue from a Republican standpoint or even from a common sense standpoint?
This is something I campaigned on back in 2024. It was one of my key points. The Democrats for years have been campaigning on affordable housing, taking advantage of the anger that people had, but yet what affordable housing is actively being built.
Yeah.
The cost of living has only gone up, and they just keep on winning. So they try and use these keywords, all these types of slogans, but they don't actually make meaningful change.
Sense.
Exactly. And so a lot of what we can talk about is, you know, since I don't have a script, you know, I can agree with ideas from both sides. Advocating to lower taxes here, you know, that is trying to cut waste spending. We see that with like the MTA going on, you know, we have to audit a lot of the nonprofits. Yeah, exactly.
Stop stealing my stuff, Brandon.
They use our taxpayer money, even like where I had just recently graduated from, the CUNY system. All these executives, some of them get paid more than the actual mayor, more than the actual president. They make these 6-figure salaries. These executives are getting paid more. More money is going into schools, but where is the money going toward? They want to reduce the class sizes, increase the class sizes. They want to do all this, but there's no meaningful change being done. How are we going to add millions more to the education budget? And yet enrollment's going down. People are, there's students that are advancing the grade levels without the necessary proficiency skills. And so where is that money being spent? It is an overflow. We need to audit them, and we need to make sure that if it's taxpayer money, that they spend it wisely, because that has been used, and that's part of the anger that a lot of the Democrats and the Republicans, the moderates, the independents have over here. Auditing and making sure that we have necessary budget and spending reform so that they're not spending millions of our taxpayer dollars and that they're spending it on something that's actually getting stuff done.
Absolutely. And I mean, listen, I'm very much in the massy vein of things when it comes to taxation. You've taken a third of my paycheck. I want to know what it's paying for, and it better not be for, in the national case, useless wars, but in the city case, we're paying some bureaucrat to sit at a desk and file forms, $200,000. It makes no sense. Pam, in your opinion, how can we fix the affordability crisis from a common sense standpoint?
Very easy. It's very easy. So like Brandon said, everyone has these ideas. Oh, build this, do this, and just spend more money. It's auditing the crap out of these people because they're stealing our money. That's really what they're doing. They're stealing our money. So that's my specialty. I love auditing people. I love auditing businesses and trying to save where there's just a lot of waste, and then cutting taxes and how we're going to do that, right? So the income tax, I think, was came about in the late 60s because the city was bankrupt.
Yeah.
Why is that still going on? Like the city's bankrupt because we're just throwing money in the garbage. We're funding all these things and we have no idea, and there's no accountability of where the money went. So that's one. I don't believe in income tax. So that's one thing when I get into office is I'm going to fight to eliminate income tax for anyone making under $300,000 a year. So that's one of my policies that I'm going to fight for tooth and nail. Another big thing for me, because I speak to a lot of police officers, like I asked them how I can help them. And a rookie cop makes about $50,000 a year. They can't even buy a sandwich. How is that fair? How is that fair to people that are risking their lives every single day, going out and then bringing home $700 a week? And we have elected officials making almost $200,000 and they're working half the year.
Getting paid more now.
That's the 174, I think it is. I mean, that's disgusting. Yeah. So another policy that I'd like to bring about, and I don't know who would say no to this, no income tax on police officers at all for the state, not the city, not the state. Brandon, you with me on that?
Yeah,
Zero
Can we
taxes.
get a co-sponsor right now?
Co-sponsor right now.
Try my best for that.
I'm going to write up a bill day one. That's going to be one of my main policies is no income taxes for police officers. I mean, they barely make anything as it is, but why should they be now taxed on top of making nothing?
It's a different story, but would you extend that to EMS and fire too?
Veterans as well, I'll probably, if you were to consider, maybe.
I thought about that, but right now you have to go in phases. You can't just say, okay.
Yeah, it can't all be.
It has to be done smart. We can't just say no taxes for anybody. There has to be a tiered system, but it can be done because there's so much waste and there's so much fraud that there's money out there. And the other thing is, like I said before, 2027 is going to be the year of the American woman. The American woman, not the illegal, not the illegal immigrant that came here to have 5 kids and be on welfare for 5 years or for 15 years. Okay. And I have no problem helping people because I know I recognize that there are people that need help. However, we have to help who's here and who actually works. And we have to help our own people.
Yeah, people that benefit to the taxes, not people that are a detriment to the taxes. Absolutely.
I wanted to add to that as well. A lot of that has to do with like the bureaucratic state.
Yeah,
they control a lot of the nonprofits where our taxpayer money is actively being used. These are public. This is public taxpayer dollars, and so what we want is stronger accountability measures, so that we invest into the needs that our community wants first before anything else, before what the donors want, what the super PACs want, what these special interests want. It's what we want first. So we need Queens candidates, people that were born and raised here who understand the district and not the establishment. No.
I didn't think about this. I didn't even write it down, but you brought it up. On a national level, I've seen this a lot. And on a state level, I've seen it sometimes, not as much. But special interests and a lot of these influence groups, I'll say, they will either pay or they will provide resources to whoever will bend over backwards for them. Is there a way that we can hold them accountable? Or, I mean, if there is, what would you do if you even would?
I think that campaign spending reform is an absolutely necessary thing. That's something that people from both parties agree on. We need to make sure that we limit the amount that they're able to spend. And there's ways that they get around that, but it's about how we're able to call them out. There's the IEs that they also do. Patrick Crowley, when he ran in the primary against Shamsul, he was paid for by DoorDash. You know, they were spending money. Well, okay, not he was paid for, but a lot of the campaign, they were actively
Sponsored by
spending money.
DoorDash.
Yeah, they were sending like a bunch of mailers, and it was sponsored by them. It was paid for by them, and so they find ways to get around that, so I can still contribute to the candidate that they want. But that's what's happening here. They're bought and paid for.
That's what's happening with Toby too. It's the
Yeah.
casinos that are putting ads out for her.
That's right. I'm
The
not
casinos
surprised.
are in love with her.
Yes.
The casinos are absolutely in love.
Wow.
I have to ask, why DoorDash?
Well, there's a lot of, you know, part of their goal was to spend against the socialist candidates. There's a lot of the interest that they want to preserve and keep. I'm sure a lot of it just has to do with what is best for the business interest, not what's best for us here. But I think if you're not even inside of the office, you're not in incumbent or anything close to that, but you're already getting a corporate back money, stuff like that doesn't just magically go away. It's a habit that just gets worse.
I had a couple things in here about like infrastructure, public safety, and whatnot. You mentioned something really important just now: the casinos.
No.
Would you mind expanding on that a bit about Toby Ann and her kind of taking money from different interest groups,
Well,
if you're comfortable saying so?
So Parkside, which is a lobbying group, which her son is the head of. He's the president or the head of Parkside, with Senator Gianaris. Senator Gianaris is now stepping down. He just started as the head of the New York wagering board. So he will be the head of the casinos, which is Toby's son's, Evan's partner. So
It's a lot.
I mean,
but they're all connected.
it's not all, it's their Parkside is, the casinos are Parkside's client. So if you could look them up. I mean, so it's
all kind of secular in a way.
yeah. So I don't know how that's not illegal. It's not. I've already researched it. It's not illegal, but it's definitely a conflict of interest for sure.
Wow. It's almost like they're teaming up with each other to, like, I don't know, like rig an election, something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong,
Well,
but
her daughter-in-law works for the Board of Elections. She's the director at the Board of Elections.
then at the risk of, I won't say any further, but it's almost like they're trying to make some fishy
Trying to
business
keep their
happen.
power.
Yes, but at the end of
Very
the day,
true.
it's all. At the end of the day, it comes down to one thing. It comes down to God, because God does control everything.
Very true.
And it comes down to the people, right? They can have all the money in the world. And if we get in front of enough people and we knock on enough doors and enough people are tired, because they are tired, because I do speak to them, and they're exhausted. They're exhausted of the same thing year after year, 27 years. They don't even know that she's alive. I talk to people in Bay Terrace, because that's where I live. And these are Democrats. And and I'm like, I'm running for office and state Senate. I'm like, oh, well, who are you running against? I'm like, Toby Ann Stavisky. And like, oh, she's still alive?
She's still kicking.
She's still there, and she's running again. And they're just like, oh, come on, like, give us somebody else. It's not fair.
Absolutely. Let's not forget, in front of the club, Vicky Palladino. Vicky's district, I believe it's 19 of the city council.
Yep.
I should know that I worked for her. District 19, I believe it has a Democrat advantage in terms of registration. It's not a Republican district. A lot of people, they register as the Democrats there, and then in a lot of election districts or precincts or whatever you want to call them, they're just blood red. But in terms of registration itself, it hurts her, because you got a petition to get on the ballot, and you also got to identify voters based on, when you're doing GOTV, get out the vote. You need to figure out who your Republicans are. And oftentimes it's probably difficult for her. So you're definitely in the same camp, both of you. In terms of, I'm glad you brought up police officers, actually. So I want to talk about public safety. As it pertains to public safety, over the past, and I adore how Mamdani said crime is down. And then like 3 days later, somebody starts stabbing people in not Grand Central, in Penn Station. And it's like, dude, what are we doing here? Like I was in Little Italy a couple of days ago with a friend of mine, Colby Connerly. We were attending a city council meeting, and you walk like 4 or 5 blocks out of Little Italy, and it's just all either whether they're migrants or not. Doesn't really matter to me. I suppose what matters is that they're committing a crime. They're selling like counterfeit Gucci on the sidewalk, and they're saying crime is down. Personally, I think it's ridiculous. And
it's not down.
It's not down. It's skyrocketing. Whether you're in Midwood or whether you're in all the way uptown or the Bronx or Staten Island, for that matter, it doesn't matter. Crime is skyrocketing. I would argue that we're just not reporting it as much. This is reaching 1990s levels of crime at this particular rate. I mean, we're not even including the 694,000 illegal aliens who live in the city. I think that's more than the state of Wyoming. I think so. And I don't want to get caught in the semantics of the culture war. I think that's unproductive in this conversation. So I'll ask you, Brandon, first. How will you fight crime? Not yourself, unless you want to be Batman, but how will you help fight crime? Superman. Well, you were on a horse. You could be like, what was that guy? The guy from the medieval movie where he's charging towards the army? Lord of the Rings. You'd be the guy from Lord of the Rings. But I mean, what would you propose? What would you help out with? How will we fight crime in New York City? How will we protect Queens?
Well, I'm fully supportive of our public safety officers, along with our first responders. We have to make their lives as easy as we possibly could.
Yeah,
I definitely don't support defunding them. You know, I think we definitely have to make sure that we make it easier for them to address the quality of life issues, and that means giving them better training, resources. You cannot just strip that away from them. You know, I was out there with Sarita. She's the attorney general candidate. And what we had found, we were speaking, this was right in the heart of Diversity Plaza, probably the most diverse area in the entire city.
Yeah.
And we were speaking to the business owner there. And I mean, it was 100%, all of them. They were all saying homelessness, crime, quality of life were their top 3 concerns. And there's like a very distinctive type of businesses that are there. We have ones that are like a phone repair. They do graphics and flyers, clothing shops, fabric shops, a bunch of restaurants. So it's like a very good mix. It's not all just the very same people. They live and breathe there. And every time that they have to go in, they have to lock up the stuff. They said that they try to call the police. It takes them an hour to actually get over there. And so a lot of this is just like a lack of priority toward patrol. We saw that, you know, not too far, right by Elliott Avenue, right close to Councilmember Phil Wong's office, very, very close to where I also live in Maspeth. We saw like the street takeover, the Ring of Fire. Now, I love to sing that song, by the way.
Ring of Fire.
Johnny Cash, I'm a huge fan of. But when I saw in the context there and just how easily they were able to do that. Now, there were police that had arrived there no more than like 2 minutes after that. But the reason that people didn't think so was because of the sheer mass of people that were there. And there's a lack of priority toward a patrol that our police has. And even with the manpower that we have now, the issue and the soon-to-be incumbents over there, they're all seemingly anti-police. And so we need that balance. We need that common sense voice. We need there to be fighters for them. And I will always be supportive of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes sense to me. Pam, in terms of public safety, how can we help protect Queens?
Well, first and foremost, we have to fund and invest in our law enforcement. That's number one. So I propose funding them with $1 billion, not divesting our police officers, because that's easily done with the city budget. What was it, 128 billion or something like that?
Something like that.
Something to that effect. And the mayor promised another 500 police officers, and then he cut that out last minute. So there you go. But not only just funding, but retention and hiring, right? So you have to make it lucrative no one's going to want to be a cop if you're making $40,000 a year to go get killed, to go get shot as soon as you walk outside of your door. It just doesn't make any sense. Would you do that?
No,
I wouldn't. Risking your life every single day. If you have a family, how are you going to support a family? You can't even buy yourself lunch. You have to live at home. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think raising their pay to a minimum of, let's say, 75,000, like a certain percentage, like 15%, I think that will be the first step in recruitment. And then also retention, right? Because nobody wants to stay past that 45 years old. Let's say they start at 20, they're done after the 20 years. They're especially now with this climate, with no one respecting police officers. The culture war is going to be a challenge to change, because right now nobody has respect for, not nobody. It's the Mamdani / Democrat spitting in the face of cops, disrespect. It's disgusting. But funding as much as we can, $1 billion in 2027. Well, 2027 is not here yet, but at least $1 billion we need to fund our police officers in different programs, resources, whatever they need. They can't do their job if they don't have what they need.
Absolutely.
So,
well, one more question for Brandon. I know you got to go to your next event. One more question for you. I'll be very quick. His campaign manager's eyeing me. He's going to beat the hell out of me once I'm off camera. So If you had 5 minutes with your opponent just to have a face-to-face conversation, what would you tell them?
Do you denounce the super PACs that had backed you during the primary? To what extent have the Crowleys helped you out? Because I've been told by multiple other people that all it took was like a phone call from Uncle, former Congress member Joe Crowley, speaking to Gregory Meeks, like, hey, just help this guy win at any cost possible.
Yeah.
To what extent do you represent the community? Why were why is it? And you have to tell me this, why he has to tell me this. There's a reason why people think that you haven't earned that role. There's a reason why people think that you're not the community voice. And there's a reason why you narrowly won by just 7 votes, because you're part of the Crowley legacy. You're part of the establishment, taking money from questionable sources, controlling the Queens Democrat machine for years now. They even have a school named after Walter Crowley. That's a school right in the heart of Maspeth there. And to what extent can you actively tell people without lying, how do you represent the community? How is it that you're at least the seventh person in your family to run for office or have any type of government position? His father, Patrick's father, was a power player at the city council. He was a former chief of staff. His brother worked for the Eric Adams. I believe it was the Eric Adams admin. A cousin was a former city council member. Uncle was a former congress member. And the list goes on and on and on and on. When you're running against somebody, at least, both of the candidates can say, I'm the first in my family to run. I was born and raised inside of the district here. But the fact that I can say that and my opponent cannot, the fact that you, Patrick Crowley, can't, that is huge. That's huge. And every door that I knock on, I'm going to tell them what my story is, where I graduated. I was born and raised here. I went to public school here. I bled, sweat, cried over here. And then the fact that something seemingly can just be handed towards somebody, narrowly winning a primary by just 7 votes. This is with just about every single union backing you. This is with hundreds and thousands of dollars spent, the establishment backing you, and you narrowly win. That is a pathetic performance. And I think that Queens deserves much, much better. This city deserves much, much better. Woodside, Maspeth, Jackson Heights, Elmhurst deserves much, much better than somebody who is beholden to the Queens Democrat machine, not to the community. I am beholden to each and every single one of you there. I was born and raised here, literally backed by the former council member, backed by an independent party. And I have family. My grandparents came here in the late 1970s. They came here specifically so that I can do better. Without them, I would not be here now. But I'm working hard every single day to make sure that every single voter knows, well, it's $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, who I am, what I'm going to do for you, and who my opponent is, and why we cannot have more of the same over here.
We love to see it. And if you want to see more of Brandon Castro on August 13th, don't forget that big guy, August or girl, but our analytics typically say guy. August 13th, don't forget to come by our candidate social. You know where to go. We're on Eventbrite right now. We're going to go to a reality check with Yulia, and we'll be right back.
There's a woman running for governor of Wisconsin right now, if you haven't heard. Her name is Francesca Hong, Democratic Socialist. And a few years ago, in, of course, a now deleted post, she said, "Cancel Thanksgiving, should have done this in 1621. It's a colonizer holiday, the original super spreader event." Of course, now that she's trying to win an election.
My favorite holiday is Thanksgiving.
I just want to say congratulations to all of us. I think we've just found the Asian iteration of AOC we've all been waiting for. But all jokes aside, because I want you to understand what they're actually wanting to erase when they talk about canceling Thanksgiving, which isn't really just another meal or a day off work. It's really a moment in history that's actually quite complicated and interesting. The first Thanksgiving, 1621, Plymouth, Massachusetts, a group of English Christians, the Pilgrims, had fled religious persecution in England, crossed the Atlantic on the Mayflower, and landed in a place they knew nothing about. That first winter killed nearly half of them from cold, starvation, and disease. They were not conquering anyone because they were barely surviving. The local tribe chose to help them, taught them how to farm, how to hunt, how to survive in that land. And in the fall of 1621, about 90 of them showed up to celebrate the harvest together. And that moment sealed a peace treaty that actually held for over 50 years. Now, think about that. Two completely different peoples, different language, religion, choosing civility over conflict. And it worked. For 50 years, it worked. Do you think that same meal happens if instead of these particular English Christians, it had been, say, an Aztec war party showing up from the south? A civilization that sacrificed countless of people on top of pyramids, that built temples specifically designed to display the bodies of victims to terrorize neighboring people? You think they'd just sit down and break bread? I'm not sure if the capacity for that kind of peaceful exchange was a universal human trait at that time. I think it actually reflected something specific about the people involved and the values they carried. Granted, the peace lasted until 1675, when the son of that same native leader who made the original treaty went to war with the colonists. Many died on both sides. It was brutal and it was real, and nobody is pretending otherwise. But here's what the Francesca Hongs of the world never seem to like to acknowledge. Those tribes were already at war with each other before a single pilgrim even stepped foot off the Mayflower. The local tribe that befriended the Pilgrims in 1621 saw them partly as potential military allies because they needed allies against other tribes that were already threatening them. The continent was already contested, already violent, and already a place where survival required alliances and warfare in equal measure. Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker, not a right-winger, documented extensively that pre-state societies were on average far more violent than the most brutal modern states. This is not an insult to Native Americans, it's the opposite. It's treating them as real human beings who existed in a real world. A world that, before the state, before order, before the rule of law, was brutal for everyone. The Pilgrims came from that same brutal world and brought with them something different, a specific set of values, legal traditions, and civic habits that made it possible to build something different. And look at what eventually came from it. The most prosperous, most free, and most scientifically advanced civilization in human history, built on that soil by those people with those values. Now, to understand how we got to where we are today, you have to understand something that the left has spent decades trying to make you feel guilty about. Because the same process that built America ordered people moving into disordered places and imposing their institutions played out across the entire world. And in a lot of those places, it worked. So for a few centuries, the West went out into the world. Some of it was brutal, that's life. Human history has never really been a sensitivity training seminar, but in a lot of places, especially under the British, something else happened at the same time. Order was imposed, railways went down, courts were stood up, property rights got written. In India, they left one of the largest railway networks on the planet, over 40,000 miles of track. Major irrigation works, a unified legal code, a civil service, universities, ports, the telegraph. A functioning modern state, more or less, handed over at independence. Or look at Singapore, look at Hong Kong. The institutional abodes were colonial, all inherited from the British. And both went on to become among the most prosperous places in the world. Rhodesia, too, is one people really don't like to talk about, so let's. Under Ian Smith's government, the country had functioning infrastructure and highly productive commercial agriculture. Living standards for many ordinary people, including black workers, were higher than what came after independence. Even the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions has said this out loud, their own leaders stating that workers had better material life under the old order than under the governments that followed. And I don't think that's nostalgia for racial hierarchy. I think it's just people noticing the lights back then were still turned on, the stores had food, and wages still bought something. Because what happened after? the farms were seized, commercial agriculture collapsed, and the country that used to export food started struggling to feed itself to the point where the current government now is paying former white farmers compensation and even started returning some of the seized farms because the land stopped producing without the people who know how to run it. Sure, the animosity is still there, but reality is forcing their hand because you don't get to drive out the people who kept the system running and then act all shocked when it stops working. But all good things must come to an end, right? Because then comes the retreat, 1956 Suez. Egypt's Nasser nationalizes the canal. Britain and France move in militarily to take it back and win on the ground, but then the pressure comes, financial, diplomatic, political, so they fold. And historians largely agree that was it. That was the real end of the British Empire, a forced, humiliating withdrawal from a canal they built. And then all the dominoes fall. Portugal retreats from Angola and Mozambique, France from Algeria and West Africa, the Netherlands from Indonesia, Belgium from the Congo. 17 African nations gained independence in 1960 alone. Empire after empire stopped believing it had the right to exist, and once you stop believing that, it's over. I'm not saying that colonialism was paradise, but I am saying that sometimes you don't know what you got until it's gone. And into that vacuum came something nobody planned for. Not another empire, not another conquest, something quieter, and in some ways, more permanent. Right now, there are over 50 million immigrants living in the United States, nearly 15% of the entire country. In 1960, immigrants to this country came overwhelmingly from Europe, Italy, Germany, Ireland, Poland, people who came from countries with broadly similar values, legal traditions, and cultural frameworks. They assimilated. Their kids became Americans. Their grandkids didn't speak the old language. You know the story. Then came 1965, LBJ's Hart-Celler Act. The immigration reform that nobody really debated properly at the time, that politicians promised would not fundamentally change the demographic character of this country, and then it did, completely within a generation. In the most recent year, only about 5% of new legal permanent residents came from Europe. Asia accounted for roughly a third, and the broader North American region, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, was over 40%. Now, in the 1960s, when immigration was still predominantly European, this country was at its economic and cultural peak. The 50s and 60s, for all their problems, produced a standard of living and a civic culture that most Americans look back on with genuine longing. Family formation was high, communities were stable, trust between neighbors was high, crime was manageable, and the culture was coherent. And then the floodgates opened, and over the next several decades, slowly at first and then very quickly, because this is how these things go, you can watch the metrics start to drift, because when you import millions of people from low trust, high corruption, low civic participation societies at a faster rate than assimilation can work, you don't transform them into Americans. They transform parts of America into something that looks more like where they came from. And that, my friends, I like to call reverse colonialism. Because think about what colonialism was at its core. It was the movement of a people from a more ordered, more institutionally developed civilization into a less ordered one. And the imposition of their norms, their governance, their values, their way of doing things. That's what it was. For better or for worse, that's all it was. What's happening now is the same process running in the opposite direction. People from less ordered societies are moving into the most ordered one that has ever existed. And they're bringing their political habits with them, their patronage systems, their in-group loyalty over civic obligation, and their expectation that institutions exist to serve their community specifically, not everyone equally. You're seeing all of this play out in New York with Mamdani and the entire DSA coalition. He just swept through the primaries. You see it in Michigan with Abdul El-Sayed winning the Democratic Senate primary, a man who, of course, wants to abolish ICE and cash bail, the whole thing. But it's not just the coast or a couple of freak instances in Middle America. Outside Dallas, Texas, Texas, they tried to build Epic City, recently rebranded as The Meadow after pushback, which is a planned 402-acre Islamic community equipped with a mosque, a school, the whole 9 yards. It's essentially a bubble, a parallel community designed to replicate the social world they came from inside the country that still functions. And in McKinney, Texas, for example, the city council just voted 7-0 to approve a major expansion of a mosque, despite a packed city hall of citizens who showed up specifically to oppose it. This is what the early stages look like. Europe didn't get to where it is overnight.
Stephen, there is a crowd outside rioting against you tonight, and without the protection and generosity of a Muslim Palestinian president and a mostly South Asian executive committee, you would be quite literally cooked.
Cooked. Yeah, I'd say she's right. We're cooked. What this shows, or at least what it shows to me, is you're a guest in my house and you're at the mercy of my protection for now, but next time, this is what it looks like when the welcomed guest decides the house is theirs now. This is what an invasion looks like, an infiltration. People get uncomfortable with these words, fine, call it whatever makes you feel better. I've been thinking a lot about this week because I actually tried to post a reaction to that Oxford clip on TikTok. Immediate community violation. Okay, fine. Thought it might have been some copyright issue, so I shortened that specific clip. Another violation. Then I removed the clip completely and just talked about it. Another one. Finally, I thought, let me try to take out any mentions of a certain religion, a certain culture out of it. So I re-recorded it with the same point, same argument, just without naming the specific religion. And what do you know? No violation. And I've been thinking a lot about what that means. A platform built in a country that has never had freedom of speech, that has never had the First Amendment or the Western tradition of open discourse, is now deciding what Americans are allowed to say about their own country. The values that give you the right to say these things, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, the idea that truth is best found through open debate rather than enforced silence, those values did not appear out of thin air. They came from somewhere specific. They came from Greek philosophy, from Roman law, from Christian theology, from the medieval period that set the stage for the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment that followed. They are rooted in a specific civilizational tradition and a platform built outside that tradition by people who never inherited it, never fought for it, never built institutions around it, is not going to protect it. I mean, why would they? It's not theirs. And I think the same applies across the board. Why would they care about our traditions? They're not theirs. And hey, can you blame them? They're only human. We're still at heart pack animals because that's the thing about infiltrations, about invasions. You don't see it until it's already inside the house, and the problem is the people coming here, many of them are not coming as immigrants in the traditional sense. They are coming as the political expression of the third world inside Western civilization. People who in their own countries would have been local strongmen, faction leaders, religious authorities, power brokers. They come here because our societies are ordered, because we built something worth moving into. And then once inside, they do what people who understand power always do. They take it. They enter systems their own people would have never created, and they start tearing down the norms that make those systems work. Because those norms are genuinely foreign to a patronage-based political culture. It doesn't compute. So they replace it with what they know, naturally. Mamdani, he didn't build New York City, he walked into it. He walked into its institutions, its democratic processes, its legal protections, all of it built by people whose civilization he would have you believe has nothing to offer. And he, and people like him, are now using all of those tools to dismantle the values that produce them. That is how colonialism works in reverse. It's not armies or flags. It's ballots and city councils and school boards and congressional primaries. So yeah, can we call it anything other than an invasion? I know people get uncomfortable with words nowadays, so like I said, call it whatever lets you sleep at night. But look at that clip again, look at that girl's face, and tell me that that looks like someone who feels grateful, who should be grateful for getting into Oxford, for crying out loud. But you can't tell me she does. That is someone who looks like she feels like she already won, because she kind of did. And here's the part that I think almost nobody is saying clearly enough. Liberalism, the ideology that is supposed to be defending all of this, cannot actually logically defend it, because liberalism has become a kind of civic religion that only knows how to feel guilty. It can critique everything, but it cannot justify its own existence because it spent decades telling us that the West traditions were the problem, while quietly living off the social capital those traditions had spent centuries accumulating. And I want to be honest with you guys, because I saw myself as a classical liberal for a long time. The term's been so co-opted. But I mean, who doesn't believe in ordered liberty and individual freedom and the rule of law? But then I found myself thinking, even classical liberalism didn't appear out of nowhere. It grew out of something much, much older, out of Christianity, out of European legal traditions, out of thousands of years of working out how to get strangers to cooperate without killing each other. Then the medieval period built the surplus, the habits, and the institutions that made the scientific revolution possible, the universities, the legal methods, the accumulated trust. And then liberalism saw all of that prosperity and took credit for it. And then, whether by design or through sheer naivety, it spent the next few hundred years slowly dismantling those same foundations. Thomas Hobbes understood that. He understood that without order, life is nasty, brutish, and short. Government exists first to establish order and the rule of law, not to right every historical wrong or to make every group feel seen. The state that tries to do all of that ends up failing at the first job, and a state that fails at the first job doesn't stay a state for too long. Traditions existed for a reason. They were not random cruelties dreamed up by dead white men. They were solutions to permanent problems: violence, scarcity, the difficulty of getting people who don't know each other to cooperate across time. We have to start being able to deal with the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That is the only adult starting point, in my humble opinion. And the people who came before us figured a lot of it out the hard way so we wouldn't have to. And today, we're being asked to throw it all away because the Francesca Hongs of the world don't like Thanksgiving. And the global leftist elites who let this happen, who opened the gates and told themselves that higher living standards and legal equality would automatically produce the same political habits, are the same people who dismantled the traditional values that made those living standards possible in the first place. In short, and this is quite sad, they created the conditions for their own replacement and called it progress. I'm not interested in soft language anymore. Call it crusader nationalism, call it traditionalism, call it the defense of ordered civilization against the people who specialize in demolition. Whatever name lets you hold the idea clearly. The point is this: we have to change the zeitgeist. We have to stop letting the other side set the vocabulary. They call us illiberal. They call us far right. They call us whatever produces the most social panic. But traditionalism is not illiberal. It is simply the recognition that civilization has to be defended, maintained, and passed on, and that the people who built it have every right to say who gets to inherit it and on what terms. The West is flawed. Everything has flaws, but it is the only civilization currently producing the surplus, the medicine, the science, and the personal freedom that everyone else is trying to move toward. And again, that's not an accident. It's the product of specific traditions, specific habits, and specific values that took a very long time to build. And look, I want to be very clear about something before anyone twists this into something it's not. Because they will, because they always do. But I genuinely do not care what you do in your own home, what you believe, how you pray, who you love. That's none of my business, and I mean that. In fact, and I want you to really hear this, the worldview I'm describing, the one that gets called far right and illiberal and dangerous, it is the one that actually leaves people alone. It is the one that says the government's job is order and the rule of law, not managing your soul. The left is the one telling you what to think, what to say, what words you're allowed to use. We're basically the ones saying, mind your own business and let other people mind theirs. But the problem is they haven't been minding their own business. And that's where this gets a little complicated, because Americans are genuinely the most generous, most kind people in the world. And as someone who wasn't born here, I mean that sincerely. I applaud you for it, but that generosity, from an outsider's perspective, is starting to work against you. My ancestors fought the Ottomans for hundreds of years, and let me tell you, they didn't do it for fun. They understood something about civilizational incompatibility that a lot of people here have had the luxury of never having to learn. I have seen people of every background, every religion, creed, come to this country, embrace its values, fight for it, build something here. It exists, it's possible, but it is not the dominant pattern of what we are watching right now at scale. It's an insidious cycle where you build something on traditions established over centuries, then someone comes along, brands it liberalism, takes credit for the prosperity it produced, and starts dismantling the foundations that made it possible in the first place. And what starts off as a reasonable idea, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, tolerance, openness, gets taken so far that it becomes its own religion, a civic religion with its own dogma, heretics, and its own inquisition. And that religion is now being used to indoctrinate the very people who built the system it is hollowing out. Western liberals, many of them genuinely well-meaning, have basically signed their own cultural death sentence, either willingly or without realizing it. But the result is still the same, because they operate under the assumption that everyone shares their values at the base level, that tolerance is universal, that live and let live goes both ways. And if you need proof, if you think I'm being dramatic about any of this, let me show you what it sounds like when they just say the quiet part out loud.
We're going to keep bringing in immigrants in this country on purpose, just so they can sister, and then maybe even your daughter. We're going to destroy the white race, bitch. That's what we're here to do.
If you think this is fringe on the left, boy, do I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. And just imagine if someone, one of us, went to the Middle East or South America or Asia and said that about their women, about their daughters, about their sisters. How long do you think we would last? How fast do you think that response would come? Because let me tell you, it would come. And it would most likely not be a strongly worded tweet. But here, he has millions of followers. He gets invited to victory parties. He gets platformed by the mainstream left because in their world, this is just, what do they call it? Punching up. Again, this is what we get for assuming tolerance is universal and that live and let live goes both ways. It does not always go both ways. If you went to certain parts of the Middle East, and I'm not talking about Dubai, I mean actually went, lived there, tried to be yourself the way you are here, wearing whatever you want, your booty shorts, your Skims, saying what you want, living how you want, how long do you think that lasts? They'd probably tell you to conform or get the heck out of here. And good on them. They're protecting what's sacred to them. Because the incompatibility is real, it's not a bash, it's just reality. And pretending otherwise is delusional. The end point of that delusion, if we keep going, is not some beautiful multicultural utopia. It is the slow erosion of everything that made this place worth moving to in the first place. Until one day you look around and the things that you took for granted are no longer guaranteed. So no, we're not going to cancel Thanksgiving. We are not treating order as oppression and chaos as justice. We are not going to let people who could not run their own countries at a basic level lecture us about the moral failures of the civilization they are desperately trying to move into and take over. We are going to defend what works. We are going to name what is happening, and we are going to stop apologizing for belonging to the only civilization that gave the world the idea that individuals have inherent dignity and the right to govern themselves. Our kindness and our generosity are being used against us. And the first step to fixing that is being willing to say it out loud. And that's the reality check with Yulia.
Amazingly said, Yulia. We love the reality check. We love Yulia, one of the hardest workers in the New York Young Republican Club. I am once again joined by Pam Michos and Brandon Castro, who has grown a beard in the past 26 minutes. So we're very happy to see that.
Hi guys, it's me, Brandon Castro.
Yo, it's me, Brandon Castro. We imitate him a lot. So Brandon, if you're watching this, yeah, sorry about that. But Carlos Janal Faria, I can't even talk today, guys. Our House Chairman and our Chairman, how do you say it?
Emeritus?
Chairman Emeritus of the Queens Caucus. So you two already have a connection there through Queens.
Yep.
We had a couple more questions for you, Pam, and I wanted to just run
Sure.
through it really quick. We never really addressed it in the beginning. Why are you running?
Why I'm running is because after Zoran Mamdani won that election,
And we are back. Sorry about that. That was some technical difficulties, issues with our microphones. Personally, I blame Zohran Mamdani. But Pam, we were just talking about why you were running. And you rudely were cut off by who I assume to be the DSA cutting our mics.
Yep.
What were you saying?
I agree with that. I'm running because I'm fed up. I'm fed up with the system. I'm fed up that with the DSA winning all these seats. I'm fed up with, honestly, also the Republican Party allowing them to just take our seats without running candidates.
Absolutely.
So I decided to raise my hand and step in. I'm running because I'm a single mother and I'm raising a son in the district. He's 9 years old, and I'm running for his future, to build a better life for him, so he can have the same opportunity that either I had or my parents had. And the way it's looking, they're not going to have the same opportunities. And the trajectory of the way things are going right now is just not looking very good. When Zohran won, this is the real reason why I stepped up. I was so angry. I was so upset. I just could not believe. I actually started crying because I could not believe that this was happening to the city, that we elected a socialist mayor. So I said, I made some phone calls. I actually met with the Young Republicans around that time. I came to an event.
That was you.
I stepped right in. I said, I want to run. And I thought I was kind of crazy for doing that. And, you guys kind of helped me and you walked me through some of the steps and what it might entail. And I said, I'm ready for this because I'm a fighter, and I've said this to you many times, right? I've never lost anything in my life. And whether I win or lose this, and I don't think I am, when I win, I'm never going to stop fighting. I'm never going to stop fighting for myself, my son, you guys, the people. That's what I'm here for.
I love it. I love it. And trust me, me and Carlos, we have our fair share of war stories with Republican parties that just don't do anything. And I think you guys know who I'm talking about. But we also had a question for you that got cut out rudely after somebody cut out our mics. And that was, if you had 5 minutes or a couple minutes with Toby Ann Stavisky, what would you tell her? Positive, negative, in between? What would you do?
I really can't think of anything positive, especially the way things have been in our district. But I did have 5 minutes with her, and I did try to ask questions, and they rudely shut me out. They didn't allow me to ask any questions. It was at the Co-op and Condos United rally in Queens Village. I think it was Queens Village. And I let all the public officials speak. They made these, speeches of how they're going to help us and how they're going to give us tax rebates, and they're against Local Law 97. Yet, my question was only one. And I said, why did you vote for every climate bill since 2019? I called them all liars because they're all liars. Toby, Braunstein was up there. Linda Lee was up there. Vicky was up there. And Vicky was the only one that's really against the Local Law 97. She's been fighting as much as she can, but since she's in the minority, she really can't do much in that area. But the fact that they stand up in front of us and they lie is just disgusting. Like, just say the truth. Just say, listen, I'm for, the Green New Deal, the Green
approach, in my view. And that's what I've seen embodied in you and Brandon, especially, and other candidates we've endorsed in Queens, like Ramses Frias. He's great. I guess I'd ask you, because just backtracking a bit or pulling it back a bit, right? I want to get to know your lore, okay? I want to get to know where you came from, where you grew up, kind of what brought you to this point. I know you're in banking, and I know that you are, a mother. Kind of, where did this political aspiration spark? Was it in your childhood? Was it in college? Was it working? I know that you were very motivated after Mamdani, but kind of where did you come from and how did you end up in Whitestone? How did you end up in Queens? Bay Terrace, excuse me.
Well, I live in Bay Terrace now. How do I make a very long story short? We
got time.
Who is Pamela? Pamela is me, of course. I'm a single mom. I live in Bay Terrace. I was born in Whitestone. My grandmother still lives in the house that I was born in. And I love that house. That was like the house I wanted to stay in forever. We moved out to Long Island when I was about 6 years old, because at the time, I think it was Dinkins, another DSA. I think it was another DSA candidate. We moved out of the city because it was dangerous. It was the crack era.
Yeah.
We moved to Hicksville. I grew up there for most of my life, but then we moved to Syosset for better schools. So I went to Syosset High School, had a great education. I was not really into I didn't really believe in the system, I guess, per se. When it wasn't really thinking about those things back then. Went to NYU. I actually studied nutrition, so definitely not banking, but I was always a hustler. So and I think Brandon touched on this before, and like, oh, we're underemployed and like people picking the wrong degrees. Yeah. The caveat to that for me being that I'm from a different generation, I'm a generation before, is that we are able to pivot, right? So millennials have this ability to switch it up. And I think that mindset has to come to the younger people, So
What do you mean by that?
well, like I chose nutrition because I wanted to heal the world. I wanted to heal people through food. And then when I got a job as a dietitian, I was making like $38,000 a year. Clearly, you can't sustain yourself with that type of money. And there really wasn't any growth from there. I think my director at the time was making like 75, and she was there for 20 years. So
Right.
I was like, I have to make some kind of a different choice. And I went into the business world. I was in sales, business, and then I ended up in finance. And, I'm doing really well there. I am a Greek American. I'm very involved with my church. I'm a proud Greek American, an Orthodox Christian. I raised my son by myself. And when I say I'm a single mom, it's not like, I'm divorced or anything. My partner decided to disappear when I was pregnant. So I had a choice to make. And it was a choice of either taking responsibility and accountability. And that's something I believe in very much. Or, taking the easy route or easy way out. And I just believe in hard work, determination. And I'd like to bring that to the community as well. Like, teach women that and young girls that you have, when you say pro-choice or you have choices. There's other ways to go about your life rather than taking like the easy route or the easy way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I'm looking at your district right now, Lee Zeldin, this is 4 years ago, but it's still relevant for the reason being that we have a governor's race right now going on between Blakeman and Hochul. Lee Zeldin got 45% of the district. So he's just 5% shy of making that 50+1. He even won the district below that, District 16. I don't know who's running there at this time, but what is the game plan? I mean, I'm sure me and Carlos can spitball with you until midnight, but right now, who do you want to talk to? Is it everybody? Is it particular people? You want to go for swing voters? How do we get to 50+1?
As you know, I'm not a politician, and I'm not a campaign manager like you guys. I'm not, so I mean, I can, because, I've spoken to you guys, right? I've spoken to you, I've spoken to Steph, I've spoken to Carlos about the district. So I kind of have a grasp on it. I'm more focused on the people, right? So I want to get into Bay Terrace. That Bay Terrace is definitely a focus of mine because we lose Bay Terrace. And I don't think it's for any particular reason that they just vote down Democrat. It's not because they like Toby Stavisky, that she's done anything extraordinary. And then the southern part of the district that's been ignored completely. So those are the two main areas. Not that I don't want to spend time in Whitestone. I'm from Whitestone. I love my Whitestone people. They're there to support me. They've been supporting me since day one. But those two areas, the southern part of the district, where I'm hearing people say how frustrated they are and how ignored they feel, I think that making the difference there and actually getting out there and talking to people and getting them out to vote is going to make us cross the finish line.
Absolutely. I'm gonna ask Carlos a question now.
Boy.
Oh yeah, dude. Carlos, as you know, was you were in charge of the Queens portion of New York's 3rd congressional district in 2024.
Yeah.
By far and large.
Yeah.
You can make that argument, while also assisting with the state Senate and other down ballot races down there.
They mostly overlap except for like 1 or 2 neighborhoods.
State Senate and Congress?
Yeah.
With the exception of Bayside. But putting all that aside, the importance of grassroots, knocking on the doors, making the phone calls, getting actually mobilized and honestly, just doing the work and not bitching about Democrats being in control of the time.
Yep.
How did that not to, sorry for my language, but it's true. How did that affect the race? Because you guys came damn close.
I mean, people are fed up with Toby, and before there was Zoran, there was Toby. Before there was dinosaurs, there was Toby.
True.
So she's been there forever. People are fed up with her. They want change. Tom Suozzi, who's the establishment Dem running in New York 3, that overlaps with there. He's the top inside trader in Congress. Like,
Real.
I think only Dan Crenshaw and maybe Pelosi come close.
Well, Dan Crenshaw's out, right?
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, and Pelosi's almost out the door too. So like, we're two out of 3 isn't bad. Let's go for 3. But yeah, these people, they want to line their pockets. They want to line their family's pockets. They don't care about you. They'll throw you a petty check, and it only gets you so far. People are getting tired. The trickle down corruption isn't working anymore.
I like that, trickle down corruption. And as Queen's Caucus chair, when you were Queen's Caucus chair, we did, this is in 2024, right? It was 2024. Yeah. We did deployments from like, what was it, like Howard Beach with Tom Sullivan and Josh Eisen. And shout out to Josh Eisen. He's the man. We did stuff with them. We went all the way to Castro's district. We looped back around to Whitestone. We had a lot of that grassroots action. We just did that recently with Pam and Mike LaPetrie at, what was it, Whitestone Park?
Francis Lewis Park.
Francis Lewis Park, excuse me. We had like 40, 50 people there, and we just sent them out, and we ran out of literature before we could even, ran out of walk lists before we could even knock on any more doors. So we just kept pumping out from there. Hundreds, maybe thousands of doors knocked, and LaPetrie murdered, metaphorically, murdered his primary opponent in that primary race. I guess, Pam, just to close it out, because we do have the Frank Forum coming after this, what would be your message to any voter or any individual in general? And then I do want to read comments. Ian, if you can pull up some comments for me, we'll do that. But before we do that, your message to any, I guess, undecided person, whether they're a Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever, what would you tell them?
What would I tell them? I would tell them that I'm the person for you, because the things that I'm hearing, the 2 main things that I'm hearing from people are the same exact. It's the affordability issue and crime. I don't hear about anything else. I've actually never heard anything about anything else from these people. So, and these are Democrats, these are Republicans, these are conservatives, these are independents, undecided. I will work for you. On day 1, I'm ready to work. I'm actually working through this campaign. I'm still working my full-time job because I'm not putting up a GoFundMe like the guy did in Jackson Heights.
Oh yes, I saw that.
The DSA. I'm doing whatever I can. I'm still carrying my job. I'm like probably one of the hardest working people you'll ever meet in your life. And I'm here to work for the people. I'm not here to line my pockets. I'm not here to create another dynasty establishment, family, Senate seat, to have my son in there and then my grandchildren. I'm here just to work for that's what our job is. It's a job, right? Is to work for the people. And I'm there for, like, I love people. That's one of my things. I truly love people of all races, all religions, all backgrounds. And I'm the first one to help anyone when I see people in need. So when people come to me and they say, Pamela, I need this, I'm going to do whatever I can to help them.
It's true. And we both know that firsthand. That is true.
I remember, real quick, I remember when last year we were looking for, we know that this is a key race and we're looking for candidates. And then we just got a message from you, and you fell into our laps. And we were like, oh, she's perfect for this race. I think you have the best shot of winning this seat, forever. I think you're going to be really
sorry,
close,
Stefano.
Yeah, sorry. But I think you're going to be the one to pull it out of the hat.
I am.
Absolutely. We got some comments here. I'm looking through here. Thank you, Mr. Ian. Shout out to Ian behind the computer, making the magic happen, guys. I would not be here without Ian.
Happy birthday, Ian, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday to Ian and Troy. I totally forgot to say that. I would sing you happy birthday, but I'm tone deaf. From Milvian Victor, right? From Victor. Hey, Victor, how's it going, bro? For me, the biggest issue with crime is not being robbed, etc., but rather there are erratic people walking around who might randomly be violent.
Yeah.
Probably in reference to drugs. Carlos? Not that I'm insinuating Carlos does drugs, but Carlos, please comment on that.
Comment on that. Yeah, I mean,
I was just saying that when I was walking
Do you
to
see
the
that in
office.
your neighborhood? Is what I'm saying.
do I see it in my neighborhood?
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot more homeless people that weren't there like when I moved there like 10 years ago. So yeah, the homelessness is getting worse. They've only done more to enable drug addiction in the city. So
what's the avenue that you live close-ish to? Roosevelt's, right?
Roosevelt is one of them. Grand is the other. Which one?
And
Which specific crime are you talking about? Because there's a different one.
Roosevelt's Avenue's got some pretty bad
stuff
crimes
going
too.
on.
But I mean, we see, and that's Brandon's district too. Both avenues by you. It's disgusting.
I mean, Roosevelt Avenue, you got rampant prostitution.
Yeah,
they'll arrest them on a Friday. They're out by Sunday. They keep coming back, and they want to build the casinos right off Roosevelt Avenue. So
Perfect for the prostitution.
poor man's Vegas is what it's going to be.
Poor man's Vegas. And I'm happy you brought that up because they're booked by Friday. They're out by Sunday. What do we want to do about bail reform?
Well, Toby Ann Stavisky was the sponsor of bail reform. Just putting that out there. So I would like to repeal it. I mean, being in the let's be realistic. Being in the minority, there's only so much you can do. But you can continue to fight and be loud and yell and scream and do whatever you can to amend some of these things and roll them back.
Awesome. We love to see. Shout out to the NYPD if you guys can hear that in our microphones. That's extra loud, that ambulance, but it's all right. I got another one here from Mr. I'm just going to spell it out.
Mr.
PN2EH. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, man. Public transit isn't a bad thing, especially for NYC. It's just bad to be car-free under socialism and communism. I think he's referring to Marx. At an eventual point, they were saying they would like make all transport public or something like that.
Well, Holka wants to ban all gas cars by like 2040, but then she's like defunding all the electric infrastructure and shutting down nuclear plants.
It's ridiculous. And it's also like, you ever see the meme of like the guy on Facebook, like the Facebook boomers, like, you're not taking away my Chevy 250 no matter what. It's almost kind of like that when I get that patriotism in my veins, like what was the Kilgore character?
It's more like the bicycle meme where the guy sticks to the stick in between his wheel and he falls over.
Yeah, he's doing it to himself. He's doing it to himself. Yeah. But I mean, that's something that I'm sure we're going to fight in the state Senate for together. You know, we can go. I actually have a lot of comments. So Thomas, I'm getting to you, bro. Give me a second, man. Yeah, we love Thomas Kellogg. Thomas, I'm getting to you. Give me a second, man. I see you have like 7 comments, dude. Lefty from Freedom Nations, lefty urbanists seem to just have a hatred for cars, single-family houses, and American markers of ownership in general, rather than a genuine enjoyment of mass transit and the urban landscape. So true, King. So true. A lot of this is derivative from the Communist Manifesto. I know that sounds cringe, and I know it sounds like pretty normie to say, but it's true. The fundamental background of any form of collectivism, I'll say most forms of collectivism, especially so.
The warmth of collectivism.
The warmth of are you feeling the warmth of collectivism, folks? Are you feeling it yet? I think I am. I'm a little safer over in Bay Ridge. I got my bodegas. I stay in my apartment, but everybody else, I don't know how they're feeling. This comes from theory, and it's true. It's so true. They don't want to see mass transit or like not NYCHA housing or like public housing because they like it. They just don't want you to own anything. Yep. Literally the meme, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That's exactly what these people want. That's what Mayor Mamdani wants. It's what Zoran wants. That's what Bill de Blasio before him and Eric Adams before him wanted.
Well, they're trying to now with the climate bills. That's what they're trying to bankrupt the co-ops.
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to do. So you can't. So then once the co-op board is bankrupt, you don't own it anymore.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's a slow but steady push, in my view, to be an abolition of private property, and it's going to begin in New York City. What were you going to say?
Yeah, no, they hate you. They don't hate you because you're the color of your skin, or they hate you because they haven't taken your land yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
They hate you because they ain't you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Effectively.
It's not stolen yet is the problem.
It's not stolen yet.
I like
Thomas, I'm getting to you, bro. I got you right here. The transit keeps going up in price, and who's in charge? Democrats, patriots. So true, King. So true. I mean, that's pretty much just that's that's been happening for God knows how long. I mean, what is it? How much is the subway now? I take it every day. I should know this.
$3.
You should know
It's like
that.
$3. So I typically getting here $3, leaving $6.
Express
it
bus
adds
is
up,
like
you know?
$7.50.
Remember the lie they told us? Congestion pricing would lower the price for the MTA.
Lies.
Yeah, I don't know why they would even say that. That was stupid.
More lies.
But you know, when it comes to transit too, there's a lot that we can work on together. Insofar as getting, you know, allocations of funds or whatnot to make it more affordable for people. A lot of people just don't take the subway anymore, and then you see people hopping the turnstiles.
That
and it's
too.
like, you know,
Or getting
it's
stabbed, or getting lit on fire.
Yeah.
or yeah,
Or maybe just getting lit on fire.
I forget the exact
on the
number.
Q
but,
train. Yeah, on the Q train, somebody got lit on fire last
like,
year.
people keep getting pushed. Like the number of people getting pushed onto the tracks is rising.
Yeah, I will stand like right by where that like yellow like bumpy line is, and people look at me like I'm a maniac. Like even if it's on
Like, why are you
34th and
standing there?
Herald.
Yeah.
Because I'm just standing. My back's not to a wall. It's not conducive of like a high trust society to even people look at me and they think I'm insane just for not having my back to a wall. It's not how New York City should be. And we touched on that before with the public safety. We're definitely gonna handle that with the police. We got two more from the name I couldn't pronounce. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name, man. No one messes with Little Italy. I see you, Arthur Ave, Bronx. Without Little Italy, there would be no NYC. I mean, listen, are we better than the Greeks? I don't know, but we're definitely up there. Sorry, Pam, but
Well, I think the point of that comment was that he left off Little Italy from the map, and he did leave off Astoria as well.
he did.
So that's pretty disgusting.
Well, that
I
would have been like
actually-
Little Athens, right? Little Astoria.
I think they want to call it the Greek town or something, but Astoria is well known to be like a little portion of Greece, right?
Yeah.
Whitestone's, but not as much as Astoria.
Mhm.
Astoria has all the restaurants, the shops, everything was written in Greek, and he just decided to leave it out, and he doesn't plan on fixing it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I really don't like that they did that. They took out Little Italy. I think they had like Little Odessa for Odessa's Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Right? So like Little Ukraine, but that was pretty much it. No Italians, no Irish, no
Actually called Steinway Little Egypt.
I think it was Little
Yeah.
Egypt.
I think it was Little Egypt.
I remember they called Bay Ridge Little Palestine. All my Italian neighbors were like hitching a fit.
Oh my goodness.
It was something else. But he said, by the way, you can be both Republican and pro-transit, totally. But what angers, I think he meant to say, what angers us is that the pro-transit folks are socialists who would end up making the MTA worse. So true. I think he's referring to rising prices and the tolls and whatnot.
What about the unlimited fare that expires in like an hour?
What do you mean by that?
There's like a fare that if you buy an unlimited ride and if you don't use it within a certain time frame, it expires for the day.
I think I know what you're talking
Because
about.
I had
yeah.
actually one of the constituents in Queens Village speak to me about this, and they're like, you have to get on this issue. And I don't really ride, the MTA or the railroad, and they fine you. They throw you off the train or they fine you. So it's like it's costing you like triple the amount that it costs just to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the LIRR and you don't activate your ticket,
If you don't
within a cer-
activate it within a
Yeah.
certain time,
they
throw you.
charge you like $8
yeah.
on top. Of
I
what you
got
already
charged
paid.
$8 a couple nights
Same.
ago. I'll
Yeah,
be
but
so
that's
honest,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's
And they don't even check half the time.
They don't after like 11 p.m. They like don't check. They never
they're
check.
probably scared they're gonna get stabbed.
Yeah.
Probably at this point, the
That's what it
LIRR
is.
train's going on like that Great Neck line. It's not looking great. Passing through Woodside, passing through Auburndale. You're seeing some characters on there. It's beginning to look like the subway. We got 4 comments from Thomas Kellogg. Bro, I'm going to read them. Calm down. Okay. Let's see here. Raise the age law. Thomas, comment what you mean by that. Raise the age law. Maybe to vote. I don't know. Have gotten go. True. This is the reason crime is out of control in New York. I don't know what exactly he means, but crime is out of control. But he did say one very, very important thing that I agree with. I'm excited for the gala. So true. Are we all going to be at the gala?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sound hesitant.
No, I'm just saying when I win, yes.
When you win, we
Yeah.
have to be there. So I mean,
Yeah,
we're
you
going
have
to be
to.
setting
Yeah.
up and
Of
whatnot.
course.
So
Well, when we hosted Trump a few years ago, he foreshadowed the shooting. Unfortunately, he was making a joke
Oh wow.
at the time. He was like, "Yeah, I feel so secure in my limo. They'll take a shot at me on Fifth Ave,
Oh
and
my
it'll
goodness.
bounce off the window. And
Bing bong,
hit
done.
them back."
You're over.
Bing bong.
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Well, Pam, any last message for the people watching, for the voters? Anything in particular? Just your final thoughts, and I'll close this out and go to the Frank Forum.
I think it's time for change. Toby Savitsky has done nothing in 27 years but raise your taxes, employ her son.
True.
Employ her son, impoverish the community. I mean, really, she has done nothing for our district. She panders to different communities. She takes pictures and she does nothing in those parts of the district. And if you want real change and somebody who's going to work for you day and night, even as a single mother, I'm committed and I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get the job done.
We love it. Carlos, any last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Oh yeah, Toby can't park. I've seen her parking jobs over in Whitestone. It's like all over the lines.
She still drives?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, when you're 351 years old, it gets very hard to see where the lines are.
Yeah.
So, well, I'll say this, and then we're going to go to Frank Forum. Voting is awesome, but oftentimes it's not enough. I've seen too many times where people say, well, we lost by 10 votes, but we'll get them next time. We'll get them in the midterms. We'll get them in the presidential year, or we'll win in the city council races. I'm going out to vote. I'll bring my mom with me. I'll bring my dog with me. Don't worry, I'll be out to vote. And then on election night or in the following days or even weeks after, we find out that we lost by 10, 15, 20, 30 votes, sometimes in the thousands, sometimes in the hundreds. And it's like, dude, or girl, whatever. You did nothing. The entire year, you did nothing. You watched Fox News and you watched Blaze TV and maybe me, and you didn't go and knock on a single door. You didn't make a single phone call. Were you at any of our events getting people signed up to vote? Any of our events getting people to volunteer? You did nothing. So you have absolutely no right to complain when candidates lose if you do nothing. So please do something. I'm not going to ask you to join the campaigns committee. I'm not going to ask you to become a volunteer with the club. I mean, I'd love it if you did, but I want to hear zero lip from the people that are not doing anything, complaining about Republicans losing. You want us to start winning again? Come win with us. Next up, we got the Frank Forum. This has been the New York Young Republican Club podcast. My name is Mario J. Nicoletto, your campaigns committee chairman. Thank you to Pamela Michos. Thank you to Carlos Janal Faria. Thank you to Brandon Castro. Thank you to our impeccable crew. We got Serge, we got Ian, we got Yuri. Thank you guys so much.
Can I say one last thing?
Of course.
Pamela for NYS.com is my website. And if you can donate even $5, $10 to the campaign, money wins races. That's very important. I didn't understand that until after I decided to run. I thought it just magically happened, but money wins races. Get out there, like Mario's saying, knock on doors, volunteer if you can, because that's the only way we're going to beat the establishment.
Absolutely.
And one of the other reason why I decided to run was because I was listening to myself complain and watch Fox News and watch the internet and Instagram. And I was getting so angry and I did nothing about it. What am I doing? And I said, you know what? I'm gonna stand up and do something about this. So now it's your turn. Stand up, get out there and do something about it.
There you go. Pamela Michos, Brandon Castro, and Carlos Janal Faria. And like she said, stop doom scrolling, start door knocking. This has been the New York Young Republican Club podcast. On to the Frank Forum. Catch you next week.
Welcome to the Frank Forum podcast. My name is Frank Filicomo. I'm the founder and editor of thefrankforum.com, and I'm joined by my good friend, Troy Olson. Troy is the Sergeant at Arms of the New York Young Republican Club and co-author of The Emerging Populist Majority. Troy, there's no two ways about it. You abandoned me last week.
I know.
And I feel that I need an explanation, an apology. What happened to you, and how could you have done this to me?
Well, I thought I'd be back on time. My family, we were visiting Minnesota. That eventually ended in my youngest, my daughter's baptism, which we were successful at doing that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I guess that's
what
valid.
we were not successful. Well, no, but we were going to be on time.
Is that more important than this podcast?
Yes, you gotta have family first. But I will say, the real reason I missed the taping was the flights got canceled in every conceivable way and delayed. So
and
it took us.
You took Spirit Airlines, right?
No, American Airlines. I was trying to avoid naming the airline because actually the upfront one, if you were sitting in there for an hour and it's 100 degrees out, it's the first flight out, and you see all like the steam from the air conditioning going around, and then they say something about a mechanical panel. That's actually a plane I'm okay deplaning. You know, priorities in life. You know, it's like let's deplane. So we deplane, and it kept getting delayed and took us into the next day. And I think I texted you. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to make this taping based on how things are going. And we eventually traveled west to go east. We got out of Sioux Falls. We went to Phoenix, Arizona. I actually wrote a good 3-part on my Instagram with showing the trip and wrote about some of this stuff. So if anyone's interested in our family trip, go check out my Instagram. I
went to Arizona once. I went to Scottsdale in August. And everyone said to me, well, you know, Frank, it's a dry heat and it'll be fine. But I went there, and I remember my glasses felt hot when I would touch them. It was oppressive. But
yeah, it was
you know, I want to talk about an organization that we both belong to and what they're trying to do, and that's Braver Angels. The New York Young Republican Club went to their convention, and what year was that, 2024?
2024, and the most recent one we did too.
Yeah, and you and I are both members.
Yep.
And I think that what they're trying to do is very noble. And for those who don't know, this is an effort to take Democrats who wear blue lanyards at the conference and Republicans who obviously wear red lanyards and get them to have sort of civil dialectic, the art of not necessarily persuading, but I would say listening and being empathetic.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, with every passing day, their effort becomes more of an uphill effort. I wonder what you think about this. What do you think of the current state of sort of red versus blue in America?
Yeah, I'm considered a white pill / optimistic person.
Not the Zoomer language, Troy.
Well, yeah. Sorry. I'm considered an optimistic person about a lot of things, especially over the long run. But I am quite a bit less optimistic about the trends in polarization. I think we are obviously polarized. We're probably more polarized than when their work started, which is no comment on their work.
Which is 2016.
It's a comment on the uphill battle.
Yeah.
My view of how this ends and goes is someone simply just wins overwhelmingly, and the losing side, if you will, for lack of a better term, is hopefully federalism. I think gives us a lot of space for the losing side to carve out a different way of things to an extent. There will of course be exceptions with that, and I also think often about who's going to be more gracious about being the winner, who will be more gracious about being the loser.
Right.
And I have my opinions on that, not especially relevant to our topic today, generally about polarization. I do commend the work Braver Angels has done, and that was a valuable experience every time I've gone to those events.
100%. You know, there's this one study from July of last year, and I think this is alarming. 8 in 10 U.S. adults say that when it comes to important issues facing the country, Republican and Democratic voters not only disagree on plans and policies, but also cannot agree on basic facts.
Yep.
I think that that's entirely right. You have, 8 in 10 Americans that believe that, like I said in another episode, not only are we not reading from the same book, or not only are we not on the same page, we're not reading from the same book.
No, we're not.
And I think, you and I last year did a debate, and was it Park Slope or some super blue?
I thought it was Williamsburg.
Whatever.
It was like, it was
some super blue area where there's Zoran Mamdani signs and windows and things like that.
Although he had not won yet, and at least the vibe in that room, maybe people were being nice to us.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like a very pro Zoran room. Maybe I just didn't have the right combos though.
Yeah.
But
well, I think that, to me, that was in many ways, I'm glad we did it, but in many ways it was a sort of depressing event, because
I did enjoy it, but I know where you're going.
What we had
this.
in effect was, the prompt was, "Is America over?"
Yep.
To which we said, as conservatives who should be prudent and rooted in reality, we said, of course it's not over.
Of course it's not, and we were
ridiculous,
and we were going to win the room.
I think so.
We were going to win the room.
But we were painted as MAGA, cult members.
Yeah.
I think. How do you how do you propose we have civil dialogue with people who believe that we are completely brainwashed and pray at the altar of Donald Trump?
I actually really think that most people in that room liked us personally, and I remember some of the feedback on how I think the people that treated us the worst in that room were actually the opposing team and some of the cheap shots that were taken.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was in deep conversations with a lot of people after we finished that event. I don't know how long you stayed, but I thought it was a really valuable event, and I had similar experiences at other events that I've done and other debates fashioned in a similar way. But there's no denying that Pew result is true. But I want to flip this real quick, because there's another group that does a lot of research similar to Pew, but the UK-based group More in Common, and who I cited in the book a lot.
Right.
And their research shows an 80% too, but flipped the other way. And what they find is that 80% of Americans still generally agree on a value set, which, like free speech and things like that. And so that's maybe just to pull out an encouraging note. And then their other big finding was, the hidden tribes thesis, if you will. Yeah. I disagree with their classification of it, and feel free to dig yourself if you want to find out more what I'm talking about, because for our purposes of polarization, one flip side of that statistic is I do think 80% of Americans, and there probably is some partisan polarization differences between that, but for the most part, 80%, 83% still agreeing with freedom of expression, freedom of speech is a good thing. That is still something to build from. Although it does seem some days that 17% or whatever is very, very loud.
Yeah. In September, which is next month, it'll be a year since Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Yep.
I think that in many ways, his assassination exacerbated political divisions in the country.
Yep.
My initial instinct was, and I guess I was naive in retrospect, was that this would be a unifying moment, and that Democrats and Republicans could kind of put all of their policy differences by the wayside and say, you know what, political violence is never the answer. But what I observed in the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing was just the most heinous TikToks, people mocking him, saying that his values were so detestable that he actually deserved to be killed.
Yep.
And that to me was, to use your Gen Z language, that was a black pill.
Yeah.
That was really, really depressing.
Yeah.
What's your take on, kind of post Charlie Kirk's assassination? Do you think that temperatures have calmed down a little bit?
No, they've gotten more extreme, and I think each side of this polarization is itself has internal contradictions that the other side, I think, works with the dissenting side trying to exploit. So I think the greatest amount of bipartisanship these days is when the left works with the dissenting right, aspects of the dissenting right, to try to hurt, and vice versa. Although I can't think of a good version of it flipped. But the biggest white pill, I'm going to stop saying pills. The biggest encouraging sign I'm seeing is on the left, there is an increasing DSA radicalism going on, and the outcome of the Michigan Senate race, for instance. But then you had was it Joe Biden's press secretary or someone? No, it was Jill Biden's press secretary endorsed Mike Rogers. So I think you're
really,
seeing, I think
there are lots of, also to that point, there's a lot of X accounts, Democrats for Mike Rogers.
Yeah, I think I'll make a bold claim. I think Dems are going to have a very disappointing midterms. They definitely will not keep the Senate.
That is a very bold claim.
And we don't respond to current events on this format, and it's one of the reasons I want to keep to that all the time. The House, I think it's down to a coin flip, but that's kind of how I think things will go. And anyone who knows anything about American government knows that if you just have the House, you're not going to be able to do too much if you don't have both houses of Congress, especially in these really polarized times. So I think the polarization will continue until someone wins overwhelmingly. But as is the thesis from the book I wrote, I think the trend lines are favoring one side over the other, and that is the side that's probably going to win overwhelmingly, and it's probably the preferable side to win overwhelmingly, because I do think the consequences of that side losing are much, much greater for the country than the liberal coastal bubbles losing.
Well, you mentioned the DSA, and I actually wrote this on the Frank Forum, where I said that, this is not a political website, nor will it ever be. I don't want it to be a political website. But I think that as an American, as a conservative, as an American, I sort of feel an obligation to speak out against the DSA.
Yeah.
Because they are not just, an ideologically different group. That this is a group that is antithetical to what the framers believed.
Yeah.
And I think that, and we said this before, but they're not reformers, right? I'm totally fine with reformers.
Yep.
If you have Democrats that have a slightly different version or even a very different version of what we ought to be doing here, that's okay, and that's healthy, and that's called pluralism.
I actually consider myself a reformer.
There
very
you go.
much so.
But when you have revolutionaries that fundamentally disagree with the whole premise of the country, Daria Lisa, Chevalier, Brad Lander, Al Sayed in Michigan, I think that there's actually an obligation on us as American citizens to speak out against them.
Right. And what's really fascinating is they're revolutionary, but it's very unclear what the end stage goal of what that revolution would be.
What does that look like in practice?
And I think when you're having that rhetoric and language, you have an additional, if you want people to actually buy in and you don't want this to end in complete crazy tragedy, you really have an obligation to describe what the end stage is. And we as best we can tell, we know at least a few of the things are abolition of the Electoral College, the U.S. Senate, and basically that's a different constitutional system.
Private property.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a different constitutional system. So we're not talking about a mere, we're not even talking about a mere change of the civic order, as I might call it. We're talking about a totally different society, actually, as what they're arguing for. And so that's why I don't blame you for breaking the rule of this is not a political site to speak that, because I think what we are trying to do here is try to chart a way forward here for us to be a united American country again.
Yes.
Through civic communitarianism, and which to you is an incredibly local thing. I think it just naturally is incredibly local, and it starts there. But I digress. I think that's a proper deviation, and in the spirit of what the site's trying to do in the podcast.
I just finished, because, I believe that if you're someone who's truly interested in politics or political science, you have to read everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's a leftist writer or a conservative writer. So I just finished reading Senator Chris Murphy's latest book, Crisis of the Common Good.
Okay.
And one thing, he's a thoughtful guy. He's a progressive Democrat, but he is a thoughtful guy. He's spoken about the loneliness epidemic and things like that a lot.
Yep.
He has good things to say. But one thing he wrote about was groups like American Compass, politicians like J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and the
groups like
right.
American Compass.
Yes. And so I think that...
What's he got against them?
Well, no, I think that he's actually surprisingly open to a sort of bipartisan consensus around economic populism.
Okay, that's
and
actually
that to me is very interesting.
That's encouraging.
And when J.D. Vance was in the Senate, he did, he had good things to say about Lena Khan and other progressive Democrats. Do you think that there is actually some room for new right Republicans to work with progressive Democrats?
I do, especially around economics.
Yeah.
But I have to note where the progressives, forget about the DSA variety, that's another thing beyond the pale. But just like let's just say you're woke progressive Democrat or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think they can get more of what they want economically. And all they have to do is tamper down the cultural
Yeah,
radicalism.
exactly.
And I think they would get more of what they want. And I think there's also room for them to get more of what they want in foreign affairs and national security as well. They could, but they don't seem to ever end up in that space.
That's it. Well, it's a good point. That's a common criticism from the sort of, doctrinaire Marxist left. They believe that identitarianism and social justice or whatever has gotten in the way of their class warfare message. And I think that that's a really interesting point. I went to NYU right, for grad school, which was just like, to say I was the only conservative. I mean, it was just so, it's so obvious. I was the only person to the right of Mao, I think.
To the right of Mao.
But there were doctrinaire Marxists in my class that were not happy with how the left was behaving. They didn't believe in all the culture war stuff. They wanted it to be about class warfare.
Yeah, and I think there is some element to that having kept them from their goals or more progress. I think there are two other things much bigger than that, though, that have kept them from there. I'll cite the one that's been cited since really the start of communism having any momentum about a little bit over 100 years ago now, which is, I think, it's just antithetical to what the human being is, wants, and desires. I think it's really hard to rewire the human being.
Right.
Their system might be able to work in the Matrix or a computer fictional virtual reality or something, but I don't think it will ever work here in life and civilization and with humanity. The second thing, much further down from that, is I think the American society has been very, very successful at, especially historically, at bringing people into the middle class. I think industrialization itself, which was around the era when Marx wrote, and then in the Europe that would have been growing and percolating. The industrialization in American life moved a ton of people into the middle class, and it was those new expectations and new accustomed to this new reality that made the 29 crash kind of shake the foundations a bit to where you'd have a rise. But I get that we had a whole progressive reformer era, and that will be credited to it as well. But even before that, industrialization historically was a big mover of making new middle class people.
Absolutely.
And the middle class in tune has been instrumental in holding the civic identity of this nation together. And so I think the second portion of bringing a bunch of people into the middle class is World War II, and which brings us to earlier I mentioned the stock market crash of 29, and I think the left of center viewpoint is the New Deal saved the American economy, but it didn't. What saved the American economy was World War II. And you could maybe make the argument, oh, that's just 6 New Deals. Okay, bring it back. But I'm someone who thinks the New Deal did not work at all. In any relevant way. I think if we had Calvin Coolidge just stay president another term, he would have had the confidence and discipline to avoid it entirely.
I was at a few years ago. I was at a book event with Sohrab Ahmari, where he was the speaker, and he was plugging his new book, Tyranny Inc. And it was one of the weirdest things ever. I believe he called himself a New Deal conservative.
Interesting.
And so, I think that it's very obvious to me that there's this new contingent on the right. Sometimes they're called the post-liberal right or whatever they're called.
Right.
And they could actually work with people like Bernie Sanders on economic populism, on tariffs, on industrial policy.
Right.
And so I'm actually, not that I agree with everything that they say, I'm actually kind of hopeful that there are elements of the post-Reagan right that are able to extend an olive branch. I mean, Chris Murphy throughout this book talks about times he worked with J.D. Vance, times he worked with Spencer Cox, who's the governor of Utah. And so I think there is a way forward.
I agree. Did I sound like an anti-New Deal conservative there?
Well, you sound like a Coolidge fanboy, which is fine. I am too.
I mean, I think the New Deal needs to be looked at in fairness to what it was, what did work. I'm not saying throw it all out. I obviously would like to see Social Security updated for the 21st century.
Yeah.
And preserved and saved.
Not sunsetted like Senator Rick Scott wanted it to
I'm
be.
not for that at all. In fact, I'm for expanding it, not in a monetary sense necessarily. It needs to have a fiscal sanity to it.
Yeah.
I'm for actually taking it from the individual and expanding it to the family and calling it family security. I think Republicans should actually lead the way with that. Since we are having more families, we should put our 21st century stamp on that and call it the Family Security Act.
Yeah.
So then people's personal relationship with that, they no longer think about FDR and the Democrats. They think about families. They think about the Republicans.
Yes.
Saving it for not just the boomers, but the boomers' children and grandchildren. That is, I think, the task. And I think the Vance philosophy, working with a Chris Murphy or whatever that would be, I think we're far more likely to get to that policy, even if it's not done under Vance, if it's done under whoever it's done under. I think that perspective is far more likely to lead us to that new consensus, and it is a policy consensus. And I think policy-wise, I am more optimistic. What you're teasing out here, but it's actually the socio-cultural aspect of how we actually talk to one another.
Yes.
That's where I'm like, oh, things do seem worse, because we also referenced earlier, you talked about Charlie Kirk, and it does seem like things are not any better than when you would have first brought this up.
My hope for the Republican Party is that we could tap into what George W. Bush tried to do. Okay, now stay with me.
Yep.
All right, are you staying with me?
I am. Let's hear it.
In the early aughts, when W, as they call him, was president, he tried to launch this kind of movement, compassionate conservatism.
Yep.
And the belief there was that material gain, economic freedom, profit maximization, whatever you want to call it, that was not the end-all be-all of being a citizen in America. And a large part of citizenship was contingent on spiritual well-being, families, subsidiarity, local communities. I think that, unfortunately, it was just kind of limited to rhetoric, and nothing actually happened with compassionate conservatism. But what I would like to see is for the J.D. Vances and the Marco Rubios, or whomever is part of this new strain of the right, to revive compassionate conservatism. Because I believe, and we spoke about this a little bit offline, that within the average American's heart is actually a conservative disposition.
Yeah.
And that is to say that we're not libertarians, we're not rugged individualists. We are people who are hardwired to be attached to families, attached to communities, attached to a lineage. And so that's what I'd like to see for the conservative movement.
I'll make one comment on that. I think so much of what the Bush era could have been it is a what if history, because I also remember compassionate conservatism, but 9/11 happens in his first year. And I really think that derailed whatever he might have planned.
Oh, you're totally right.
For whatever that would have been. And obviously and honestly, that's maybe the truth of all of the last few Republican administrations is we're still figuring out what the true north is going to be in this reform, American renewal. Let's get to a new golden age, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But the only thing we can really come to terms with, because every new administration that has Congress, you get this one big bill, this freebie, and it always just is, I'll just do some tax cuts. That's kind of what we always settle on. And that's why I actually do like the one big beautiful bill was the first to go beyond just tax cuts. Like with Bush, it was tax cuts. With Trump, it was tax cuts. The one big beautiful bill, there were some tax cuts in there, but it wasn't the 17 bill. It was actually mostly centered around immigration and the border, and some other reforms. And there was some family items in there, the Trump accounts. Like there has been, I think we are, if you really take a look at the details of the policies of Trump too, I do think you're seeing a version of that compassionate conservative.
I think so. Child tax credit,
Trump accounts, So I think we're moving closer to that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not
There's
obvious.
no question.
Yeah.
There's no question. I want to leave off on this final thought. I think that going back to the issue of polarization, I think that we need to get better at speaking to each other. And unfortunately, and this is sort of an obvious observation, a lot of what we see in the media stokes our partisan division and just kind of repeats all of these platitudes. And I think about a show, and I really maybe we'll have him on as a guest one day, but I really think it's the worst show I've ever seen, next to maybe Jersey Shore, is Piers Morgan's show.
Yeah.
Now, Piers Morgan, I don't know what his politics are. I guess he's sort of a left of center person. His shows are basically relegated to taking the worst exemplars of the left and the right and having them go at it in almost a sort of Jerry Springer type of way.
Yeah.
And so he'll have some like left-wing Twitch streamer who says insane things.
Yeah.
And then he'll have a Nick Fuentes and they just kind of scream at each other.
He goes on there.
He's been on there.
Okay.
And so I think that is so detrimental to the American experiment.
Agreed.
My preference, and I encourage everyone to check this out if you have the time, other than thefrankforum.com, is Two-Way with Mark Halperin.
Oh.
What a service to the country. And his whole mantra of the show is peace, love, and understanding.
Yeah.
No smack in the chat. The presumption of grace to all.
I've got to tell you.
That's the way forward. Troy, last thoughts, and then we're going to wrap it up.
No, my thought is you actually named the only thing that you could even call media anymore that I watch. I watch Two-Way. I don't know how Mark Halperin votes. I imagine it's lean Democrat slightly.
Yeah, he seems kind of like a split ticket guy.
Yeah, but he calls balls and strikes pretty well. I think he's a fair guy, and the people that he has on, he has access to both worlds, and I think that right there is valuable because so many people in the media, which is obviously very left leaning, so they're access journalists maybe for their world, but they're not for the right. They don't know anyone on the right. People on the right, rightly so, have shut them out. Why, and why would they give them access?
Yep.
So the two informational ecosystems, they just reinforce one another. Mark Halperin's Two-Way, which I hope continues to grow, and I love what he's doing, is maybe one of the only things in the media, independent media, of course, that's trying to do it a different way.
Agree.
Love it.
All right, this was fun. All right, thanks so much for watching the Frank Forum, and we'll see you next time.